There are stories the stars still whisper, tales so old that even light seems to hesitate when passing through them. Among those echoes drifts the legend of humanity's debt, and how they repaid it in a way that changed the galaxy forever. It begins quietly, with a promise made long before humans had ships that could pierce the void. Back then, they were fragile dreamers bound to a single world, unaware that one act of kindness would ripple far beyond their skies. It started during the last days of the Orion War, when the skies burned red with plasma storms and desperate fleets scattered across dead space. The humans were not a great power then, just survivors, barely holding their colonies together. Yet, when an alien vessel stumbled into their sector, crippled and near death, they didn't turn away. The stranded crew belonged to a species that had once conquered worlds and enslaved others. Yet humanity didn't ask about their past. They offered help because it was right. They shared air, food, and warmth, asking for nothing in return. That single act, simple, human, and without demand, was the beginning of everything that followed. The rescued aliens swore a debt of honor, one they promised would be repaid when humanity needed it most. But centuries passed. Empires fell, and names faded into dust. The galaxy forgot the promise, except the ones who made it. When the storms of the future came, when the galaxy turned cold and indifferent once again, the debt was remembered. And this time, it was humanity who stood at the edge of extinction. By then, Earth was no longer green. Its oceans were gray mirrors of smoke, and its people lived under the shadow of a war they never started. The Dominion, a coalition of advanced species, had decided that humanity's growth was too dangerous to allow. They called humans reckless, unpredictable, and unfit for the stars. One by one, Earth's allies fell silent, unwilling to risk their own survival. The humans stood alone, with broken fleets and dying hope. And yet, even in that darkness, they did not surrender. They repaired what they could, fought where they must, and held the line not because they believed they could win, but because that's what humans do. Then, just as the last defense ring around Earth began to crumble, something strange happened. Signals flickered across long-dead channels. Forgotten transponders came alive. Across distant galaxies, voices rose. The ones who had once been saved had returned. Ships older than human memory, bearing symbols no longer found in records, emerged from hyperspace. They didn't come for conquest or vengeance. They came to repay a promise, to honor the debt humanity had never asked to be repaid. No one knows exactly what happened after that. Some say the battle that followed reshaped the very stars. Others whisper that the humans vanished into the void, their fate sealed in a silence only the cosmos could understand. But one thing remains certain: the galaxy still remembers. And if you listen closely, you might still hear the echo of humanity's kindness whispering across the stars. The humans had always been an oddity in the galaxy, fragile, stubborn, and endlessly curious. For generations, they had crawled across the stars with little more than determination and makeshift technology, earning suspicion, ridicule, and sometimes outright hostility from the established empires. Yet their unpredictability had a strange power. It forced even the oldest and most rigid civilizations to take notice. Now, after centuries of quiet struggle, that unpredictability would become the spark the galaxy had never expected. Long before the Dominion's fleets darkened the skies, humans had been learning, observing, and adapting. Colonies had grown in secret corners of space, where no great power bothered to look. They experimented with technology that seemed crude at first glance, but carried an elegance born from necessity. Every failure taught them something new. Every loss hardened their resolve. They learned to survive not because the galaxy favored them, but because humanity never truly accepted defeat. And somewhere, in the shadowed corners of these isolated worlds, the memory of that ancient debt lingered, like a quiet pulse beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The alien species humanity had saved so long ago were unlike any humans had encountered since. They were both beautiful and terrifying, their minds operating on principles that bent space, energy, and reason in ways humans could barely comprehend. Stories passed down in hushed whispers spoke of their warships, crafted from living metal and powered by hearts of stars. Even the thought of their return sent ripples through human settlements, a mixture of awe and fear. Humanity had never sought allies in the galaxy, but now, without realizing it, their quiet act of compassion had sown a bond older than most empires could remember. Meanwhile, the Dominion tightened its grip. They had studied humanity for decades, charting their expansion, noting every misstep. Humans were reckless, yes, but they were also unpredictable, an anomaly that refused to fit any model or expectation. The Dominion viewed that unpredictability as a threat, but they did not yet understand the full scale of what they had awakened. Their fleets moved with cold precision, crushing worlds that resisted, erasing colonies without hesitation. Humanity's people grew accustomed to living in shadows, navigating ruined sectors and hiding technology in places the Dominion would never think to search. Amid this chaos, small pockets of humans became legends. Engineers who could repair a ship with scraps that should have been useless. Pilots who could outmaneuver fleets 10 times their size. Scientists who whispered about quantum corridors and energy fields that could bend the very fabric of space. They were ordinary people, yet extraordinary in ways the galaxy would not expect, because humanity had always learned to survive not by strength alone, but by ingenuity, heart, and sheer stubbornness. And somewhere in the void, the returning allies waited. Silent signals pulsed through abandoned channels, coded in frequencies long forgotten. Humans detected them, but no one could interpret their meaning. Not fully. The transmissions hinted at something far larger than a simple rescue mission, a plan that spanned centuries, a repayment that could shift the balance of the galaxy. Curiosity and fear intertwined as humanity prepared to confront the unknown. They were alone, yet not truly alone. The stars themselves seemed to hum with anticipation, as if the galaxy remembered the debt and it was ready to be claimed. The humans didn't know what was coming, only that the whispers had grown louder. Somewhere, beyond light years of empty space, the ancient promise stirred. And when it finally revealed itself, the galaxy would learn that humanity's story was far from ordinary, and that a single act of kindness could echo across centuries, shaping destinies no one had dared to imagine. The first signs of change were subtle. Anomalies in communications, strange energy readings in sectors long thought abandoned, and ships appearing where no route should exist. Human commanders exchanged cautious glances over cracked holoscreens, realizing that what they once considered luck or coincidence was something else entirely. The debt, the promise made in forgotten centuries, was awakening, but it did not arrive gently. It came with questions, with shadows that the humans could not yet see. On the front lines, small fleets scrambled to defend colonies under Dominion attack. One outpost, built on the jagged remains of a shattered moon, became a symbol of humanity's resilience. Pilots fought tirelessly against overwhelming odds, their ships battered yet unbowed, while engineers worked around the clock to patch damages with whatever materials they could salvage. Rumors spread among the scattered crews. Ghost ships, vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere to lend aid and vanish again. No one could confirm it, yet every report shared the same chilling truth. Humans were not entirely alone, and the galaxy remembered them. In the council chambers of Earth's last surviving stations, leaders debated strategy and survival, weighed against the growing hope that allies long thought extinct had returned. Fear clashed with cautious optimism. Some argued for immediate evacuation to preserve human life, while others insisted on holding positions, believing that the debt owed to them could change the tide of war. Every decision carried the weight of thousands of lives and countless futures. Meanwhile, among the returning alien allies, there were divisions of their own. Centuries of survival had shaped them differently, creating factions with conflicting interpretations of the promise. Some saw humanity as fragile yet deserving of protection, while others questioned the wisdom of intervening directly, fearing repercussions from the Dominion. Their internal debates mirrored the tension humans faced, adding layers of uncertainty to an already volatile situation. Even in unity, there was hesitation, and hesitation could be deadly in a galaxy where decisions were made in light years and seconds. On board hidden scout vessels, human intelligence operatives tracked Dominion movements. Every encounter revealed new threats: adaptive drones, fleets that could anticipate maneuvers, and weapons that bent the rules of physics. It became clear that the Dominion did not simply intend to control humanity. They sought to erase it entirely. Yet even as the odds stacked against them, humans found opportunities where none seemed to exist. Abandoned weapon caches, old experimental tech, and allies who arrived at the exact moment needed. The tension grew as each small victory only hinted at a larger, more dangerous conflict on the horizon. Beyond the battlefield, whispers spread among civilian populations. Stories of humanity's mysterious benefactors became legends overnight, fueling hope and fear in equal measure. Some began to see the galaxy itself as alive, as though the stars themselves were aligning to honor the ancient debt. Others worried that relying on unseen forces could be a trap, that the promise might carry consequences humans could not yet understand. And in the darkness between stars, signals continued to pulse, encoded messages that no one had fully deciphered. They spoke of debts, of balances owed, and of choices that could either save or doom entire civilizations. Humanity was caught between survival and destiny, and the tension stretched taut across every fleet, every colony, and every human heart. The galaxy remembered. The debt was stirring, and nothing would ever be the same. Yet the final move, the moment when promise and survival would collide, remained just out of reach, waiting for the humans to step into the unknown. The void seemed to tighten around humanity as the Dominion's fleets converged, dark shapes blotting out distant stars. Every jump through hyperspace carried the weight of uncertainty. Every sector might hold ambushes, traps, or worse. Human pilots moved with a precision born of desperation, their ships weaving through debris and firestorms, while distant transmissions pulsed with the promise of allies they could not yet see. Each signal raised hope and dread in equal measure, a reminder that the galaxy was watching, and the debt was about to come due. On Earth's battered command stations, strategists pored over data streams that flickered like dying stars. The humans had learned to fight against impossible odds before, but this was different. The Dominion's assault was relentless, and intelligence reports hinted at experimental weapons capable of erasing entire fleets in seconds. Even the veterans whispered of things they had never seen, phenomena that bent light, energy bursts that seemed alive, and ships appearing out of nowhere to strike at key targets. Humanity was being tested not just in strength, but in willpower, in ingenuity, in the essence of what made them human. Among the returning alien allies, tension crackled like static over long-range communications. Factions that had once debated cautiously were now united in movement, yet disagreements still lingered on strategy. Some pressed for direct engagement, believing humanity could not survive on its own, while others counseled patience, waiting for the right moment to tip the balance. The humans listened, learned, and adapted, absorbing lessons from beings far older than themselves, yet never surrendering the stubborn courage that had carried them this far. Across the scattered colonies, civilians hid in the shadow of conflict, their faith wavering but unbroken. Rumors of miraculous rescues and unexplained interventions spread, growing into legends that fueled both hope and fear. Parents whispered to children about the stars remembering humanity's kindness, about allies who had returned across centuries to repay a debt no one had expected. Merchants and traders, once focused on survival and profit, now watched the skies with a mix of reverence and terror. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Human engineers worked feverishly to upgrade aging ships, repurpose abandoned technology, and create weapons that could survive the Dominion's next strike. Pilots ran simulations over and over, pushing themselves to the edge of exhaustion, testing every tactic, every maneuver. Scouts reported glimpses of alien vessels moving just beyond the visible spectrum, their forms ethereal and impossible, yet undeniably real. It was a reminder that the promise made long ago was not idle. Something powerful, something ancient, was arriving to intersect with humanity's fate. And then came the first sighting, the flash of light against a distant nebula, a fleet unlike anything humans had ever seen. Ships of impossible design, glimmering with living energy, moved in perfect formation, closing the distance with precision and purpose. The Dominion noticed immediately, redirecting its forces, and a tension that had been building for months erupted into near chaos. On Earth's command stations, humans braced themselves, knowing that everything would change in the next moments. The galaxy was poised on the edge of collision. Humanity's survival, the repayment of an ancient debt, and the overwhelming force of the Dominion were about to converge in ways no one could predict. Every mind, every ship, every heart waited, suspended between fear and hope, as the stars themselves seemed to pulse in anticipation. Somewhere deep in the darkness, signals thrummed like a heartbeat, counting down to the moment when history, legend, and destiny would collide. The humans knew the climax was near. They just didn't yet know if they would live to see its outcome. Just when hope seemed brightest, the unexpected arrived. The alien fleet that had appeared in the distant nebula, long thought to be humanity's salvation, suddenly altered its course, not toward Earth, but deeper into Dominion territory. Sensors picked up strange energy pulses radiating from their formations, signals that even the most advanced human analysts could barely interpret. Panic and confusion rippled through human command stations. Had the Allies misunderstood the situation? Or worse, was there another agenda hidden beneath the promise of repayment? Reports came in from scouts. Dominion ships were reacting, but not in the predictable patterns the humans had studied for months. Entire squadrons changed direction without warning, and fleets that should have intercepted human colonies instead scattered or vanished from sensors entirely. It became clear that something larger was at play. The alien forces, far from acting as simple reinforcements, seemed to be triggering shifts in the battlefield that humans could not yet comprehend. Every pilot, every strategist, every engineer realized that they were no longer just fighting for survival. They were part of a larger, unfolding plan whose rules they did not know. In the command centers, leaders debated frantically. Some argued that the alien fleet's mysterious behavior was a trap, a strategy designed to lure humanity into a fatal confrontation. Others insisted it was the long-awaited repayment of the ancient debt, moving in ways humans could not yet understand because the Allies saw patterns and threats that humans could not perceive. The tension reached a fever pitch as the Dominion fleets advanced, now guided by instincts and intelligence that seemed almost prescient. Every move the humans made risked disaster, and every hesitation could cost entire colonies. Meanwhile, whispers spread among the returning alien factions. Some among them questioned whether humanity was ready for the full power the debt promised to unleash. Others feared that their intervention might trigger consequences far beyond their control. The humans, caught in the middle, had no way of knowing whether the Allies' intentions were protective or perilous. The ambiguity hung over every mission, every jump through hyperspace, amplifying the stakes. On the frontier colonies, civilians felt the change immediately. Communications that had carried hope now carried unease. Traders reported entire sectors going dark without warning. Scouts described flashes of energy that bent light, creating illusions or perhaps openings into spaces humans had never imagined. Engineers who once marveled at alien technology now worked feverishly to reverse engineer what they could, trying to predict the next move of both friend and foe. Every day, the galaxy's whispers grew louder, hinting at consequences the humans were only beginning to sense. Then a shocking report came from a remote deep space observation post. A human fleet that had been leading the counteroffensive against Dominion forces vanished entirely, leaving behind only distorted readings and a trail of energy that did not match any known propulsion system. The news struck fear into every human commander and civilian alike. Was this the beginning of humanity being tested beyond its limits, or something far darker? The debt's repayment, the Allies' intentions, and the Dominion's relentless pursuit were converging, and no one could predict which force would strike first, or if humanity would survive the encounter. As fleets braced for the coming storm, every mind turned skyward, straining to interpret signals, to predict moves, to find safety where none seemed to exist. The stakes had never been higher. Humanity's survival, the ancient promise, and the fate of entire colonies hung in a delicate balance. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble, whispering secrets and warnings that only humans could feel in the tightening pulse of fear, hope, and anticipation. The climax was approaching, and no one, not human, alien, or Dominion, knew what the next moment would bring. The galaxy held its breath as the final confrontation erupted. Human fleets, battered but unbroken, moved in formation alongside the alien vessels that had long lingered in mystery. For the first time, the humans could see the full scope of their allies' power. Ships that shimmered with living energy, shifting shapes like liquid metal, and weapons that bent light itself. The Dominion's forces advanced relentlessly, their numbers overwhelming, but the humans had something they had never relied on before: trust, courage, and the ancient debt being fulfilled in ways they could barely comprehend. The battle ignited across multiple systems, stars flaring with energy as fleets clashed in a cosmic dance of destruction and survival. Human pilots darted between firestorms, coordinating with alien ships that moved with perfect synchronicity, each strike precise and devastating. Engineers worked feverishly to maintain fragile defenses, their hands moving with a speed and clarity born of desperation. The humans had never been the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced, but in this moment, their determination and ingenuity became a weapon just as potent as any cannon or plasma beam. In the thick of the conflict, the alien allies revealed their full purpose. They were not merely here to fight. They were here to guide humanity to a hidden nexus of power, a location in deep space where the ancient debt could be fully realized. Here, the balance of the galaxy could be shifted, and the Dominion's influence undone. Humans had to hold the line long enough to reach it, and every second felt like an eternity. Ships fell, stars flared, and the vacuum of space became a crucible where courage was measured in heartbeats. At the critical moment, human ingenuity tipped the scales. Pilots led Dominion fleets into gravitational traps engineered from remnants of destroyed planets. Engineers rigged unstable energy cores to create blinding shockwaves, and civilians operating hidden stations broadcast coordinated signals that disrupted enemy communications. Every human, from the frontline fighter to the technician behind a console, became part of a living strategy, weaving chaos and brilliance together. It was not sheer firepower that turned the tide, it was humanity itself, unpredictable, relentless, and unyielding. Then came the decisive strike. A coalition of human and alien ships converged on the Dominion's command vessels. The energy nexus activated, unleashing a wave that bent space and light, collapsing Dominion lines and scattering fleets across systems. Humanity had survived against impossible odds. The ancient debt had been repaid, not as a favor, but as a demonstration of the galaxy's recognition of humanity's courage, ingenuity, and heart. For the first time, humans were seen not as fragile upstarts, but as a force to be reckoned with, their reputation echoing across light years. But even in victory, the galaxy whispered a final secret. The energy nexus, the source of the Allies' power, did not simply vanish. It pulsed with a strange rhythm, as if alive. The humans had survived, yes, but something deeper had awakened, something that no one could fully predict. Signals of unknown origin began streaming through every system, carrying patterns, codes, and a presence that hinted at intelligence older than the galaxy itself. Humanity had won the battle, yet the true challenge, the one that would test their courage, curiosity, and ingenuity in ways no one had imagined, was only beginning. As the last Dominion vessels fled and fleets regrouped, humans looked toward the stars with awe and apprehension. The ancient debt had been honored, the galaxy had remembered, and yet a new mystery had emerged, pulsing across the void. Humanity had survived, but the story was far from over, and the stars were whispering secrets that would shape the next chapter of their journey. In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy felt different. Where once humans had been overlooked or underestimated, they were now acknowledged, not just for their strength, but for the very qualities that had defined them from the beginning: courage, ingenuity, and the unshakable will to survive. Colonies that had been threatened, even destroyed, slowly began to rebuild. Engineers repaired ships and stations. Pilots trained the next generation, and ordinary people who had hidden in fear began to step forward, knowing they were part of something larger than themselves. Humanity had survived the impossible, and the debt they had inspired had reshaped the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. The alien allies, now fully recognized by humans, shared knowledge and technology in measured ways, teaching lessons that spanned centuries of experience. They explained the true nature of the energy nexus and its potential, a resource so powerful it could stabilize entire star systems or shift the balance of empires. Humans listened with humility and determination, realizing that survival was not just about strength, but understanding and responsibility. What had begun as repayment of a debt had become a partnership built on trust and mutual respect, a bond that would endure far beyond the conflict. Even the Dominion, scattered and defeated, left a mark. The remnants of their fleets and colonies became cautionary examples, a reminder of the consequences of underestimating those they sought to dominate. Humans rebuilt not with revenge in mind, but with resilience and foresight. Borders were redrawn, alliances reforged, and communication networks expanded across previously unreachable regions. For the first time, humanity was truly a player in the galaxy, capable not only of defending itself but of shaping the future of countless systems. In quieter moments, humans reflected on what had brought them here. It was not the weapons, the tactics, or the technology that had secured victory. It was the human spirit. The promise they had fulfilled so long ago had returned, not as an abstract concept, but as tangible proof that kindness, courage, and ingenuity could ripple across centuries and light years. Children in rebuilt colonies learned stories of the humans who had once been fragile dreamers, who had stood against overwhelming odds, and who had shown that the galaxy could be reminded of what one species' heart could achieve. Yet even as peace settled, the galaxy whispered of more mysteries. The energy nexus remained active, sending pulses that hinted at intelligence far older than any known civilization. Humans studied the signals, curious and cautious, realizing that their journey was far from over. They had repaid a debt, survived a war, and proven their worth, but the universe had more to teach them, more challenges to test their courage, and more secrets to uncover. As stars twinkled across the dark expanse, humans looked outward with hope and determination. They had learned that survival was intertwined with curiosity, compassion, and courage. They had learned that even the smallest acts of kindness could echo across time and space. And though the galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, humanity had found its place among the stars. Their story, once whispered in the void, would now be remembered for generations. The debt had been repaid, the galaxy had witnessed their courage, and humanity was ready for whatever came next.